Hello, I'm back. It's been a long while since I've live streamed. Very long. I think when I went to go see the last Avatar film, that's when I last live streamed. And I think that was like in December? Like 8 months? I've been a mess. But yeah. And then I saw Mandalorian weeks ago. I meant to do my reaction video of it. There's no reasons I'm not. But the red one scared me. Anyway, yeah, I went to go see it. I meant to do a reaction video. Didn't do the reaction video for like ages, and I was like refusing to let myself do like anything else stream wise until I got that out of the way. Including like a lot of gaming streams doing that I had time for, like the 007 game, whatever. I even refused to put this top in the wash, Star Wars top. It's pointless to see it because I forgot that I couldn't really see the shoulders up anyway, so it didn't actually matter anything. And then it got to the point where I went to go see the next film on my list, which was Supergirl. And I was like, you know what, I'll just do one stream because God knows I'm trying to make this happen twice. It's good. I still teased too much. I miss Hobbit and reactions, but it's fine. Anyway, that's an update on my life. Let's start off with talking about Mandalorian and Grogu. Not to sell it short, it's definitely a Star Wars film. Let's start with like the negatives because it is like by far the worst thing about the film. It's massively inconsequential. Stories fundamentally should invoke a thesis being challenged, and that's completely absent here. By which I mean, a film should start off presenting you with a premise of some description, doesn't matter what, some kind of premise. And throughout the film, that premise gets challenged, and at the end, you get what we call a synthesis. And the synthesis can either be wrong, or there's like a middle ground, it doesn't matter. But you know, hello Faith 89. Oh. No, I have spent too long being quiet, and I will speak my piece, and they will not silence. Anyway, that's yeah. So there's no thesis here. And annoyingly, the film really seems to prove that those who felt that the season would be concluded in story were correct because, you know, throughout the Mandalorian, really we saw Din's beliefs being challenged the entire time. You know, we saw growth of fatherhood in the first season. In the second season, it was trash. Oh yeah, it was about like, you know, the different Mandalorian beliefs, and then that kind of extended into the third season, and then we got a Din at the end of the third season, who ultimately, I guess, has a sense of synthesis. You know, they seem content with how they are. They're content that Grogu is their son. They have decided that they're going to take like lawful jobs and be a bounty hunter. They've, you know, helped Mandalore be claimed. There's essentially a synthesis. In this film, hello Frost XXZ26. In this film, Din faces no conflicts of belief or self other than to get themselves out of situations they find themselves in, but ultimately have no personal investment in like the plot other than they're given a job to do and paid to do it. Like, they've got no personal stakes of anyone they fight, no one challenges any of their core beliefs. No one puts them in a situation where they've got to choose between two possible choices. I am good. Frost XX. I finally caught up on doing my live streams, and at most, press shit, Miktar. Stop. I'm gonna have to kick you in a second. You keep we do spend extended periods in the film seeing Grogu be more independent, and that was good. I enjoyed it. It was executed fairly well, but you also saw what happened in season 3, and this is a continuation, but without kind of any. It's further growth, but nothing's really being like. There's no challenge to overcome. There's no new situation that is put in. We're just becoming more comfortable being independent, and it's not as entertaining. Like we saw the synthesis happen, which is a third act thing, and that's what happened in season 3 of Mandalorian TV show. We saw the synthesis of Grogu's growth and their joint backgrounds as Jedi young and Mandalorian foundling in the finale of season 3. They don't really do any new ground in this film that we hadn't done previously, except in like the literal sense of progression. But anyway, that's the negatives. And this film, the adventure starts off by a New Republic hiring Din to rescue Rotter, to rescue Rotter the Hutt that we last saw in the Clone Wars film for the twins. And I said about these negatives as if I'd finished with negatives. I actually have more. And in exchange for rescuing Rotter the Hutt, the twins are going to give the New Republic information about a mysterious warlord that little is known about in their appearance. And spoiler alert, they're not a big player in Star Wars, they're not a significant villain for the show. We're given no indication of why they're a particular threat or why they've been so hard to find, and ultimately when we actually catch up with them, they're a pretty pathetic villain that you're kind of like, well, this was what was eluding the public for so long, and yet they still want to put like this many resources into catching him. Anyway, you know so little about them. Now, there was a line I didn't quite catch on my first viewing, and that possibly covers what I'm about to say. But I didn't catch it, so I'm going to assume it didn't. And I could correct it if I ever watched the film. I mean, it's probably online. I can probably watch it now, but God knows, so long since I saw it, I can't actually remember when the film line was. Check. It's revealed that the twins were actually feeding information to the Imperial remnants and misleading the public, presumably for pay. Which seems to suggest that they knew that the Imperial warlord that the Republic were after was the person who was keeping Rotter the Hutt in the first place. It's a heck of a coincidence. In which case, if they knew that, and it seems to suggest that they did they not also know that the warlord's plan was to have Rotter killed at the end of the contract the very next day? Like, the twins' initial motivation was genuinely to kill Rotter dead. And, had they not got Din involved, that would have happened. Had they not got Din involved, they wouldn't have found the warlord, who they had no, I guess, real need to go and get caught. Like, there's no benefit from twins in this situation. They don't... it establishes that they've misled people. So there's no benefit to them instigating the plot, which really frustrates me. I feel like I'm missing something, but I can't work out what it is. So those were the negatives. There's still a lot to be entertained by, like some of the visuals and CGI in this film are the best in the franchise. Grogu has some genuinely moments. And while on paper the appearances of Zeb or Aurelios and Ember, is a bit different than plays with their action figures on paper. When you watch the film, actually, they don't stand out. They don't stick out the film. You're not distracted by the fact that these characters from the cartoon in it, they actually do mesh fairly well with the narrative of them, and they're not, obtrusively in your way. So, all in all, I think this is probably the third worst Star Wars film in canon. It's not as bad as Rise of Skywalker, and it's not as bad as Rogue One. And it's entertaining. It's just a lot of nothing. So that was Mandalorian and Grogu. Now we're going to talk about Supergirl. There's a lot of pissing in this film, is what my notes here say at the top. The film itself is anything but piss, as it does wear its maturity on its as it quite tactfully and appropriately tackles subjects of trauma, grief, and choice. That's not to say the film is without flaws, and it does have a lot of flaws. Most of the characters, their portrayals I would describe as effective but flat. For example, Rufy, I've already forgotten how to say her name. Rufy pretty much doesn't change the entire film. We talked about character growth and thesis and synthesis in I was talking about Grogu. Rufy is like the instigating character of the film. And her emotional grief is like what instigates the film, and obviously Supergirl's emotional grief also comes into it. In a way where how it should work in normal story theory is that Rufy's grief should be a counterpoint or a challenge to Supergirl's grief, and through that, Supergirl as a character grows. And because Rufy isn't an antagonist, you'd expect her to grow as well, but she stays pretty consistent for the entire film. She doesn't really get challenged. Supergirl does, say to her a lot, if you let yourself succumb to revenge, the grief, it won't fix your problem. Which is a fair bit of a message. She doesn't really prove the point. She don't really explain why she knows that. I'm happy to accept that maybe she's past. Like, I don't. Well, it might be nice to see, but she's being kind. She's trying to not let this girl turn into a killer. So maybe she's full up the entire time. She just doesn't want it. But Rufy doesn't I know throughout the entire film, Rufy doesn't at any point hesitate. She doesn't seem to really listen to what Supergirl is saying to her. And then at the last second, when she has the villain at her mercy, she hesitates. And maybe she was always going to do that. Maybe she's not. It's just because she's not a killer at heart. But there's nothing really kind of challenges her. She just kind of gives in, and she doesn't really feel like she changes. And also the character is played effectively. The actress who plays her does a really decent job, I think, considering how young she is. You can feel her grief. Her portrayal isn't that. The material she's given is that. And this is also very much true to a lesser extent, though, because she's being the character of Supergirl. Alcock brings a lot of depth to the film and improves it a lot by bringing what essentially a lot to a role that is actually given very little. It's a very basic and impactful premise. It's just fine. That's fine. You don't have to make your writing your characters complex. But if you're going to treat basic what this film is and the budget it is, the fact that it's a main, mainstream film, you need to give more depth to the writing without necessarily making it competent. And it doesn't. It just throughout the film, it's the writing very much lets it down, and Alcock has to carry a lot of the weight there in bringing fantastic and layered performance, and I think that lies a lot with her acting and directing. But that is stuff that happens in production. It wasn't material. It was clearly not material that was given to her, and she does a really, really good job. She's fantastic in the role, and I want to. And equally, Krem is a simple but effectively despicable villain, and in fact that works with Krem because Krem is the antagonist. You don't need to seek growth from our villain. They can literally just be an obstacle. And it's effective. There does seem to be a trend in female-led films that our villains are misogynistic, at the very least, and often it seems girl as I'm thinking about Black Widow film. But that's enough to make them despicably monstrous. And the darkest part of this film was having Krem succeed in hunting down a young girl who spends a prolonged period of time running away in fear and then slitting her throat on screen, albeit from a distance. In any other film, you'd expect like them to be saved in the nick of time, but this time Kara is too late, and if anything, the fate that criminals gets very quick and satisfying. But again, this is a film, so you don't want to like have Supergirl torture her. I have no problem with Supergirl being ultimately putting Krem down. Like, she isn't Superman. She's not got this note. She clearly understands that Krem is a threat that needs ending. The action scenes aren't the greatest. You do feel a lot of Kara's power, but like the film seems to have its way to obscure a lot of the stuff with fast camera movements, environmental debris, dust, explosions, smoke, and you can very often tell you're watching a CGI double of Kara rather than actually like, well, it's very rubbery, so you can tell. And like we've had good CGI doubles, but you can't tell because which is much you can tell. And the film also relies on the age-old issue: how do we make our invulnerable superhero actually struggle? And part of me actually wonders if they knew this and they let into it, because it constantly is coming up with so many different reasons why Kara has to struggle. And she experiences one issue, overcomes it, and basically it's no issue. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as it being a girl or son, which I think is why I think the film is self-aware, because it always shows the current solar classification on screen on it. But we have different reasons for intoxication, the poison, the kryptonite, and it's very obvious. I suppose it's a necessity. And I think, if you can't gently put it in a film, then I guess you have to, be obvious. Ultimately, the film is largely successful, exploring the difference between Superman being the optimist who sees the good in everyone, and Kara being grounded who sees the truth, and it's a very strong second building brick in the new DC universe. It could have benefited from a bit more depth. Anyway, those are my thoughts on films. I gonna go eat food and maybe do some game stream. Finish off Star Trek. Anyway, thank you. Gamma.